Mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenjani kwekwasi vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry. Before we get into the highlights for the broadcast, we would like to send a heartfelt congratulations on the wonderful campaigns by Senegal, the Lions of Africa, as well as Congo, who unfortunately were knocked out of the FIFA World Cup. But it's safe to say that they made us proud. If you look at Congo, they scored their first World Cup goal. They got to their first knockout stages. Johan Wissa was amazing, and we all enjoyed saying Fimbu, Fimbu. And we'll be looking forward to you guys and Lumumba the next time you make Africa proud. Now, getting straight into our highlights for today. Kenya court orders William Ruto to address cabinet gender imbalance within 120 days. More than 900 arrested after South Africa's anti-migrant protests. Zimbabwean billionaire Tagwirei pledges $1 million to repatriate citizens from South Africa. And on the same subject, President Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe urges Zimbabweans to embrace returning diaspora citizens. We'll also be joined by Mr. Arrie Hougaard as he delivers the South Africa report. DSTV 285, GOtv 25, oneup2.com, Network Media Hub, and ntvafrika.my.na. And NTV Afrika is spelled with a K. Top stories shortly.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative sport tourism.
Let's get into our top stories on Africa Good Morning. The Kenya High Court has ruled that President William Ruto's cabinet does not comply with the constitutional two-thirds gender principle and has directed the head of state to correct the imbalance within 120 days. In its landmark decision, the court found that the current composition of cabinet falls short of the gender threshold required under the Constitution, which states that no more than two-thirds of members of elective or appointive bodies should be of the same gender. The court consequently ordered President Ruto to take corrective measures within 4 months to ensure compliance with the constitutional requirement. The petition challenging the composition of cabinet argued that appointments failed to uphold gender equality and inclusivity as envisioned under the Kenyan constitution. The ruling places renewed pressure on the Kenya Kwanza administration to restructure cabinet appointments or make fresh nominations to achieve the required gender balance. As of this morning, according to various reports, South African police have arrested more than 900 people during the nationwide anti-migrant protests that were mostly peaceful but at times turned violent, with shops looted, police said. Of 120 marches held across the country, 108 were peaceful, while 12 required police intervention, according to Deputy National Police Commissioner Tebelo Mosikili. Reasons for the arrests include immigration violations, public violence, harboring undocumented migrants, and robbery. Police also confirmed that one person was shot dead late in Johannesburg's Alexandra Township, where residents looted informal corner shops known as spaza shops owned by foreign nationals. Reinforcements were deployed across 5 of South Africa's 9 provinces overnight, while soldiers were sent to Johannesburg's inner city Hillbrow neighborhood, where 2 people were injured in a shooting. And in Durban, police opened an inquest into the death of a foreign national who allegedly jumped from the 8th floor of a building before the protests, believing he was being targeted. And as of this morning, the Ghanaian Foreign Ministry put out a statement on X with regards to a Ghanaian individual who was murdered in Cape Town during these anti-migrant protests. They have vowed swift action, particularly with the African Union, and they said they will pursue every channel possible to make sure that justice is served and that Africans cannot be persecuted in South Africa. Now, staying with the same subject, Zimbabwean businessman Kudakwashe Tagwirei and his wife Sandra have pledged $1 million through the Bridging Gaps Foundation to help repatriate up to 20,000 Zimbabweans seeking to leave South Africa amid rising anti-immigrant tensions. The donation supports Harare's efforts to expand emergency transport capacity and will finance buses transporting returnees from South African cities to the Beitbridge border crossing and onward to communities across Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's Ministry of Local Government and Public Works formally accepted the donation, requesting the foundation to procure buses and coordinate logistics, including transport within South Africa and services at Beitbridge border post. The intervention comes as hundreds of Zimbabweans gathered outside their country's consulates, waiting to be processed for government-assisted transport home. Now, staying with the same subject, now to the president's response. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has called on Zimbabweans to warmly welcome and embrace fellow citizens returning home from the diaspora, saying the government has put in place comprehensive measures to support their reintegration. Here is Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa.
My dear comrades, Zimbabwe is our home and the sacred lands of our forefathers. I appeal to all families and communities to exercise the true African values of compassion, love and caring for one another. More so as we welcome those returning home from the diaspora. Government has put in place comprehensive programs to ensure the seamless, safe and dignified reintegration of returnees. The successes we celebrate to date are a product of collective effort, sacrifice and commitment. As we move into the second half of the year, I urge us all to intensify all efforts to deepen coordination among departments as we remain responsive to the aspirations of the people we serve.
So that's been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, Arrie Hougaard will join us with the perspective and the news from South Africa, also particularly regarding these nationwide anti-migrant protests. But prior to that, let's have a look at the weather.
AITSA is 'n eg Namibiese inisiatief. Ons reis op die hartklop van Afrika en vertel stories van mense en hulle dorpe op verskeie platforms insluitende televisie en sosiale media. Dit is joune, syne, julle en ook almal van hulle aan die ander kant van ons grense sinne. En dit maak AITSA 'n lekker ding. Kyk AITSA maande om 18:30 op ntv102.com as ook op Netwerk Media Hub en NTV Afrikaans se YouTube kanale. Volg ons op Facebook of besoek ons webwerf by aitsafrika.com.
All right, now with the current affairs from South Africa. And reporting from Cape Town is Arrie Hougaard, starting with the nationwide anti-migrant protests and talking about South Africa's economy under pressure after recording a trade balance deficit.
In current news in South Africa, the news of the week was mostly around the protest against illegal immigration in South Africa. And the big day was the 30th, that was the 30th of June, this past Tuesday. And it was the whole of South Africa that held its breath. So it went largely peaceful, but there were some incidents still. But it was largely peaceful because there was a massive show of force of law enforcement in South Africa and the police. And that helped the situation a lot. There were still 195 arrests that was made, and 103 people that was criminally charged as well. That will happen on Tuesday, the 30th of June. Then related to the police presence, the acting police minister, Mr. Firoz Kachalia, said he was happy in the way that the police handled the situation. And there's still fear that it will be continuously day by day. And there's still challenges. So the police said that they will not be demobilizing. Also, the leader of the group March and March, that is Juanita Ngobese Zuma, she said that every Thursday from now onwards, there will be protests against or illegal immigration. So it is the police that said they will be 100% on standby every Thursday, but they continue to be 24/7 in most centres of the city, especially in South Africa, especially in Gauteng, where there's a bigger threat at the moment, and also in Durban. The current situation is unfortunate that many foreign nationals is displaced in South Africa at the moment, and it is unfortunate, and about 50,000 foreign nationals have been going back to their countries. That is mostly via buses, and that was the last few weeks. So the situation in South Africa is still ongoing. Also related to current news in South Africa, it's related to the economy of South Africa, and the economy of South Africa is under pressure at the moment. That's because the South African trade balance recorded a deficit for the first time in several months, and the preliminary trade deficit at the moment is 1.8 billion South African rand. The imports was 180.6 billion South African rand, and the exports 178.8. The current deficit is largely due to a larger oil import bill that was created with the Middle East conflict. And in April, it looked a lot better for South Africa in terms of the trade balance. In April, the surplus was 14 billion South African rand. What happened the last few months the last few weeks related to import and export, there was a decline of 5.7% of exports in South Africa related to gold and also platinum and the export of vehicles. And then for imports also, it was a 3.1% more, and that was mostly because of the crude oil and also equipment and vehicle imports. Then to close off current news, it's related to the new cabinet changes that was made by the President Cyril Ramaphosa. It was confirmed that the new Minister of Agriculture will be Mr. Willie Oukamp, and he's replacing Mr. John Steenhuisen, that's stepping down, and he's going to be a deputy minister in the Department of Trade. And it is also, there were lots of criticism on Mr. John Steenhuisen, that was for the handling of the foot and mouth disease in South Africa. But now the new Minister of Agriculture in South Africa is Mr. Willie Oukamp.
Now in sport, Arrie, it's two teams meeting the English. The Proteas women's team hoping to qualify for the T20 World Cup as they meet England, and the Springboks, who by the way have a very robust squad, meeting England as well on the weekend.
In sport in South Africa, there's lots happening on the rugby and the cricket. There's a Cricket World Cup. It's a Women's T20 World Cup that's taking place in England. and South Africa play in the semi-final, a very important semi-final. They play against England. That game will be played on Thursday, and that game will start at 7:30. That is Namibian time. Important for South Africa. They tried to win the tournament for the first time. They've played in a few finals, but a tough assignment to play against the host England. Already Australia is through to the final, and that final will be played on Sunday, and that will be at Lord's. So the semi-final is being played at the Oval, that is in London, and South Africa rely a lot on some of their star players like Captain Laura Wolfhard. Also, it is Tasman Brits that's doing well, and Shabnin Ismail, she's the fast bowler. And then also Marizanne Kapp, she's an all-rounder doing well in the tournament as well. And Marizanne Kapp said that the best is still to come from this team. So hopefully they can do that on Thursday and go through to the final to play Australia on Sunday. Also, rugby in South Africa is quite big this coming weekend. The Springbok rugby team play against England. That is in Johannesburg at Ellis Park. That kickoff time is 5:40 p.m. Namibian time, and it's the inaugural Nations Championship that will be played between 6 teams from the Southern Hemisphere and 6 from the Northern Hemisphere. So South Africa now play against England. They also play in July. They play against Scotland and also against Wales. So the team will be captained this coming Saturday by Siya Kolisi. And there's 2 milestones. It is Damian Willemse and Cheslin Colby, both of them playing in their 50th test. That is for the Springboks. Also, the Springboks under 20 team is playing in the World Cup at the moment. That is in Georgia. That's being played. And the South African team will be in action again on Thursday again. And they will play against the host, Georgia. They had a good start to the tournament. Their first game, they beat Uruguay by a record score of 104-7. And so it's a big winning opening game that for the SA under 20 team. And then they still play against Wales. That's another game coming up for them in the tournament. And so that is the under 20 World Cup taking place. So that is sport news in South Africa at the moment.
Now, every single week you give us a beautiful place to visit in South Africa. And this time you're focused on Cape Town. Where should we go, Arrie?
In entertainment news, we go to the town called Grabouw, and it's also called Grabouw and Elgin. Elgin is also the region there, and it is just 65 kilometers from Cape Town, and it's a very important economic side of South Africa as well. Lots of South Africa's fruit come from the Elgin and Grabouw region, and it is fruits like apples and pears and plums, and it's 65% of South Africa's apple export is from the Grabouw area, and it's also very popular for tourists as well. It's a beautiful area, lots of mountains there, the Groenberg, and there's also different mountain ranges there, and it is in 1996 also that appetizer, that is a very well-known product of South Africa. Appetizer was started in that area from, that is by the Bekers family and the Lombardi family, so it is a proud product of the Grabouw region. But it's not only appetizer and also the apples, pears and plums. There's lots of tourist attractions. It is also the Elgin River Lodge that you can stay. Great accommodation there. It's very scenic, with lots of water sport to do. Also, you can go into the mountains, and there's also opportunities to go with your bicycle and the cycle into the mountains as well, and also fishing, of course. And then also it is wine region as well. One of the wine estates there is Oak Valley Wine Estate, very popular with brilliant Pinot Noir red wine and also Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc wines. So very popular also for tourists that visit there. It is also very popular for the tourists because of the N2 road that goes past Grabouw, and that road goes all the way to the Garden Route of South Africa. And so there's lots of places to stay and lots of things to do there. One of the places to stop on your way to the Garden Route is a farm stall, and that is the Orchard Farm Stall. That is just when you about to enter the town of Grabouw. It's very popular, lots of homemade stuff that you can buy there. So for all the tourists visiting South Africa, Grabouw is an area not to underestimate. It's just 65 kilometers from Cape Town. It's worth visiting.
Now we end with economic news stemming from Namibia, as Minister of Industries, Mines and Energy Modestus Amutse announced that fuel prices in Namibia will decrease this Friday. This video is by NMH journalist Augeto Greg.
10 ppm. So accordingly, the ministry hereby announces a decrease in fuel pump prices. That will be effective from the 3rd of July 2026 at 12 o'clock midnight. That will be this Friday. The pump price for petrol 95 will decrease by 1 cent, $1 per liter. $1, not 1 cent per liter. While the pump price of all diesel grades will decrease by $4 per liter. Consequently, the new pump prices at Walvis Bay will look as follows. For petrol 95, it will trade at $22.48 per liter. For the diesel grades, starting with the 50 ppm, it will trade at $24.26 per liter. And also the diesel 10 ppm will trade at $24.36 per liter.
All right, very interesting. Particularly when you also consider that in Zambia, they've also announced a 90-day subsidy of fuel taxes. So we'll see how it all unfolds. Perhaps there's a change in the global supply chain that we haven't been quite aware of. But kudos to Namibia and Zambia indeed. This has been Africa Good Morning on DSTV 285, GOtv 25, 1up2.com, ntvafrika.my.na. We return tomorrow as we wrap up the week with the top stories from the continent as well as the news videos of the week stemming from Namibia. My name is Ashwin Berry. Cheers.